Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host Craig Fowler and this is a lower league show. Unfortunately I'm here because Shaughan is away on holiday in Italy. He is stalking Billy Gilmore and Scott McTominay, obviously having a great time doing so, and Fraser Clark is also on holiday. I'm not sure whether he's away anywhere, I forgot to ask him. So, Craig Telfer is having to do with me hosted this week as he brings you the expertise on what's been happening in the Scottish lower leagues. Telfer, how's it going?
Very well, Fowler, very well, Fowler. While you might not necessarily anyone's first choice or second choice for that matter, maybe even third or fourth choice, the fact that we're getting to do it in person, in your flat, in the Gorbals, I think that's quite exciting. It's been a long time since we've done a face-to-face normal podcast, so I'm just looking forward to sitting and just chatting with you about some teams that you've never heard of before.
Yes, I've done my research today. Hours and hours of research, watching highlights, watching post-match interviews, reading fan comments. So I've got things to say.
You didn't go for, and you know what happens when the X and Y of the terrace get together. You know, fancy doing that.
That's your bit.
That's fine. What I will say is though, Emma Stump, who's a long time listener, gets in touch with us regularly to let us know if we've mucked up. That's which is fine. That's obviously got the corrections and clarifications. That's where they're from. She had recommended a documentary about the Reverend Jim Jones in the People's Temple called Terror in the Jungle, and I have started watching it. I watched about the first half hour from part one. It's very good so far, so I'd highly recommend it. Very, very interesting. Very charismatic man, Reverend Jim Jones. I don't know if I would drink cyanide-laced Flavour Aid at his behest, but nevertheless very compelling. It was mistakenly.
Oh, was it not actually Kool-Aid?
Kool-Aid, it's not Kool-Aid, it was Flavour Aid.
Right.
But the expression drinking the Kool-Aid, that comes from the People's Temple.
Is that kind of like Aldi's version of Kool-Aid?
Oh, that's a good question. My Wikipedia research didn't actually, just hovered the mouse over the Flavour Aid, but I didn't actually go in to discover more about it. But yeah, common mistake, but that's where the expression comes from.
There you go. I know that's where the expression comes from. I didn't know that was not quite accurate.
See, imagine being the well actually guy when somebody says, "Oh, drinking the Kool-Aid." Well, actually, it was Flavour Aid. I won't be that guy though.
Yeah, I've actually passed up the chance to be the well actually guy a lot since coming back, because when you visit Machu Picchu, the site, the old society that was built, that isn't actually Machu Picchu. There's a different name for that, which I've actually forgotten. Machu Picchu is the name of the mountain behind it. So you could be that kind of, well, actually, but I keep forgetting to do that when people say, how was it?
It's like Frankenstein as well. It's actually Frankenstein's monster.
Yes.
Dr. Frankenstein was the well-meaning but ultimately misguided mad scientist, and Frankenstein's monster was his creation. Good book, Frankenstein. I did it at university. Really good book.
Oh, really?
Aye.
Okay. I've seen the film. Well, one of the films when I was younger. But
I've seen the film. You get a gist.
I know what happens.
You get a gist of it. There's no point in reading the book.
It's been rude.
Aye, no point in reading it. It's all about sort of like creation and coming to terms with your own identity and so on. So it's very, very good.
Speaking of corrections, Connor, is there anything that you were pulled up on last week?
Well, sticking with Emma Stump, actually, she said that Grinning Pete, who obviously we have come to colloquially know the Queen of the South manager Peter Murphy as, that's actually the nickname Football Ramble have given to Peter Crouch. Now, I didn't know this. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, but I thought it was worth mentioning just in case we have infringed on someone's IP.
I think Peter Murphy is more deserved of that name than Peter Crouch. I know Peter Crouch does grin a lot, but
Peter Crouch doesn't grin after he's just lost his team watch 2-0. He's Inverness Caledonian Thistle.
He's grinning for a reason. He's just doing a podcast. Like he's finished with professional football. He's got a beautiful wife. He's living his best life.
Yeah.
He's not just been beaten 2-0 at home by Inverness Cali.
Yeah, aye. So there's different levels. I think obviously we're going to come on and talk about, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Big Ped Murphy and his team. But yeah, I do, when you listen to the all 11 minutes of his post-match interview, you'd be grinning to hide the tears as well.
Yes. Before we get to our patented 3-game roundup, there is some exciting news to bring everybody first of all, and that is A View for the Terrace will soon be back on your screens. It'll be next Friday, so that is the 3rd of October, Friday the 3rd of October. It'll be coming on, I believe the time will be the same, 10:30 on the BBC Scotland channel, and available on the iPlayer as well.
iPlayer available from midday as well, which is fantastic. And that was a huge boon last season when they basically brought the release date forward. I think it's funny because it's a show about football. It's a weekly show, so when it comes to the Saturday afternoons, the previous show, you're perhaps not as interested in it once it's been and gone. However, having that leading time, that's fantastic. So it allows people who have perhaps got kids or maybe going out on the Friday night, you can watch it, you can get everything you need to about Scottish football, and then you can go out and enjoy yourself or put the wines to bed. But I can't wait for it to come back. I've been looking forward to this for months since it finished, and it's great to get the chance. You get to hang out with your mates, you get to talk about Scottish football all across the levels, and you get to have a laugh doing it.
Yes, I don't know how much we can say about it. Probably not much until it's gone, but there's going to be some changes. A new look kind of version of the show, but still the same essence, still talking about Scottish football throughout the tiers, and still going to be films on every episode as well.
It's going to be class, man. Looking forward to it. I have bought a lot of clothes for it, and I'm really excited about them. One of them I bought is an Italy top from Euro 1996.
Wow.
Now, Italy didn't do particularly well in that one.
They didn't get out of the groups, did they?
No, but it's the top. It's a Nike top. It's got white and gold on the collar. You think Pierluigi Casaraghi, Fabrizio Ravanelli, those are the names that you're thinking of when that top comes to mind. So it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm waiting on something else coming that I'm hoping to wear for episode 1. If not, I might expedite that. But anyway, that's something for the viewers to look forward to, what I'm wearing in the show.
And on a totally unrelated matter, it's time that we remind you that today's show is brought to you in association with NordVPN. As we all know, it can be frustrating failing to get access to TV shows that you can easily watch in the UK while you're abroad, and it must be doubly frustrating if you're a Scottish football fan who has moved abroad permanently and you're not able to keep up with some critically acclaimed content.
Yes.
So, well, those frustrations can be erased. They can be erased if you get yourself NordVPN. And in addition to accessing shows that you want that you may otherwise have been restricted from viewing, and also if you want to, let's say, bypass some certain laws that have been brought in by the British government regarding age restrictions, well, you can fire up NordVPN and you don't have to worry about it. And you can also be rest assured that you can be safe from the threat of malware and scammers, as NordVPN takes cybersecurity very seriously.
Indeed. Now, I know read-throughs can be a little bit awkward, but using NordVPN is anything but. It really is a fantastic way to access the internet the way it should be. I have started using it recently, and I think it's fantastic. Normally, if it was a sort of read-through for something I didn't necessarily believe in, I would take the piss. Ho, 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 Green King. And so on, but I can only say good things on NordVPN. It's very, very cheap as well, and it just basically allows you to stay safe online and just basically do what you want. So great.
Yes. Yeah, Stirling, Green King never wanted to advertise with us again after that. But anyway, their loss of NordVPN's gain, and if you're interested in signing up for NordVPN, you can do so with a free 30-day money-back guarantee by going to nordvpn.com/terracepod. Once more, that's nordvpn.com/terracepod for a free 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, I maybe should have said this in Corrections Corner, but I said at the end of our show with Robert Borthwick on Monday that we were going to be talking about St Johnstone against Dunfermline, which was on the telly last Friday. And I was like, that's actually perfect, because even though I didn't watch it at the time because I was too busy watching Kilmarnock versus St Mirren, I could fire it up on the iPlayer and I could watch the full game back. But then you messaged me this morning and quite rightly pointed out that it's not really any point in talking about either St Johnstone or Dunfermline because both of them are playing tonight. So we're recording on the Tuesday and this will be out on the Thursday.
Can we actually just briefly talk about that match?
Well, I've seen the goals and I've seen the double save at the end.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I think this has perhaps been the game of the season so far. I could not believe how good St Johnstone were in the first 25 minutes. I couldn't believe how good Rory McLeod's goal was to put them ahead. I couldn't believe just the ebb and flow of the match in the second half. And I couldn't believe Mason Munn not coming for that cross at the end and allowing Josh McPake to slide into the back post and finish.
Like,
the ball's in there.
By the time he turns around, it basically just goes over his shoulder.
Unbelievable. I know it's a big loopy cross. You think, just come and get it. And the ball's in the back of the net. But then it just goes to show you the difference of having a rookie goalkeeper taking his first steps in the game does compared to someone who's got a bit more... a bit more dirt under his fingernails, for want of a better expression. And Toby Stewart, the saves he made at the end, match-winning saves. And I think that come the end of the season, I know that St Johnstone started the campaign with that fantastic 5-1 win over Partick Thistle, but if they win the league this season, and it's only by a small margin, if Ross County get their act together, if Partick Thistle or whoever go on a run, I think they'll look back in that game as such a decisive match. I thought it was a really great game of football, and certainly one of the best games that's been broadcast on BBC Scotland for the Championship this season.
Yeah, even the short highlights in the roundup, which is what I watched before I watch the highlights of one of the other games we're going to talk about later, you could even tell for that Mikey Stewart, just in the co-coms, just in those wee clips, just constantly like that. What a game this is! This is unbelievable.
It was brilliant. It was a great game of football, and it'd be great to get the chance to talk about it in more depth. But both teams are playing on Tuesday night, so whatever the outcome of that match, St Johnstone might have lost that game heavily. So we'll talk about
because we can't really talk about them being like
runaway leaders
when they champions elect already and then they lose.
Is it Airdrie they're playing? It's Airdrie they're playing.
Especially if they lose that would be but it's probably unlikely to happen. We should stop talking about it by the time everybody listens to this. They might have already won 5-0. So let's get to the game we are going to talk about for the championship. And that was another disappointing result for Ross County. Beaten 2-1 at home by Queen's Park. Josh Fowler with a double for the away side, either side of a Ronan Hale penalty and a red card for Declan Gallagher, which certainly helped swing the game back towards the Spiders. Ross County, bottom of the championship after 7 games played without a victory. And that's safe to say that nobody saw that coming into the season. What did you, I suppose the general question is, what did you think of this one? I've got a lot of thoughts about County because it's obviously a team I watched last season. But what was your first reaction to this result and for what you saw of the highlights?
A shock, but not necessarily a surprise. I think what we've seen from County so far this season has been deeply underwhelming. I think Shaughan and I covered their defeat to Arbroath a couple of weeks ago. They lost that match 2-1. Declan Gallagher at fault for both goals. Had a really poor performance here, certainly for the first goal, and then was red carded at the half-hour mark. And as Tony Docherty said in his post-match interview, that was a moment that really swung the game in Queen's Park's favour. I think he was really content with how the match was going, was looking to kick on for that last half hour, make attacking substitutions, and it completely scuppered their game plan. And I think that Docherty, in his post-match interview, said, there's fragility here. I knew that coming up. So I think there's an underlying issue there at Ross County, a sort of a sickness almost, like Ross County are infested with termites. He's like Tony Docherty just bought a new house and the place in the woods absolutely rotten. So there's something not right there. And I think that this is a game where a lot of those faults converged.
And it's maybe quite telling saying that about, like, you're saying that after you're talking about kind of Gallagher's red card, and he was, he made no excuses for it at all. He said it was this kind of like a terrible decision for Gallagher. You kind of seen the highlights, because at first, like, I read about the fans, kind of what the fans thought of the game before I watched the highlights, and I think everybody was saying he's been beaten for pace. He's been beaten for pace loads this season. I actually think he's not necessarily beaten for pace. He loses the flight of the ball. I think he turns in. It's Ben Crompton. I think you're absolutely right. He loses the flight of the ball. He seems to turn around to gesture to Crompton, like, I've got this, or you've got this, or something. And Matty Shields just runs around his blind side, and then Gallagher's like, oh my goodness, and it all happens so quickly. He grabs him, falls down, and he's on the ground for a long time with his face in the deck, the head in the back of his hands. He knows it's a red card. He said, I thought that when he went to County, I thought automatically you've got a guy there who played well, and he frozen out at Dundee United, came back in over the latter part of the season, got the team into I think it was a 5th place finish, wasn't it? 4th place finish, where they got into 4th place finish, playing European football before he moved on. I thought it'd be a great signing for County, and it just hasn't been that case. And I think that watching Docherty's post-match interview, because he used the word inexplicable 2 or 3 times, he mentioned the red card decision 2 or 3 times as well. I think Docherty and Gallagher need to sit down and just have a chat about what's going on. Something I found quite interesting, I didn't even realise this, that when they signed Gallagher, they gave him the captaincy. So they took it off Conor Randall, who's been there for years. And, I mean, Conor Randall, I don't know what he's like behind the scenes, but he certainly plays the game like a captain. Yeah. Like, he gives it 110% of the game, maybe a bit of a limited player, but somebody that's, whether he's at fullback, whether he's in the middle of the park, you're going to get his all during those 90 minutes. And I'm not saying that's not the case with Gallagher, but you do wonder whether the decision to take the captaincy off somebody who is a veteran player, quite possibly quite popular in the dressing room, and give it to somebody who's coming in who's new and is then not playing well, whether that's just kind of upset maybe the harmony behind the scenes as well, because you're right about there seems to be a sickness, because I was looking at this County team and being like, so before I even read up on it, the first thing I done was like, right, before I get anybody's opinion, I'm going to look at the team, because I should know most of the team myself. Big team. I don't know Crompton very well, and I don't know O'Sullivan very well, because they didn't play in the Premiership. But literally everybody else is players I've seen before. I'm looking at it like from the front back, like a front 3. County fans have wanted that for ages. And Jay Henderson, kind of out-and-out winger. Phillips, more of a kind of a forward who's a bit more versatile, can play through the middle, can play in the wing, and then Ronan Hale, kind of a goal scorer, can do a lot of work himself. So you've got some good balance there. Phillips is also a big guy. Into the midfield, maybe lacking a bit of size, but Docherty, guy can set the tempo. Fraser with a bit of kind of hard work himself, but also the kind of creative flair, and Randall just kind of covering every blade of grass. And then even to kind of the defence, like on paper, Gallagher and Wright should be a very good, strong centre-half pairing. Like I say, I don't know about the fullbacks, but I know Sullivan's had good write-ups. And then you got Ross Laidlaw, who only a couple of seasons ago was one of the best goalies in the top flight.
Touted for perhaps a Scotland call up. Someone on a View From The Terrace who was desperate to make a point and get it taken forward into the show.
Yes, quite right. So, but he wasn't great forward at times. So you're looking at that from front to back to front, and you're thinking, that's a good team. That should not be bottom of the championship.
What I would say about Gallagher with the captaincy, it's not as if he's come into a team where there's been minimal turnover of players. There's been a lot of turnover of players there. So maybe when Don Cowie was assembling this team, he wanted to go in a different direction. So I don't know what the circumstances are there, but it's just his performances haven't been good. He hasn't lived up to the billing, and it really seems to be. I'm not saying the weight of the armband, because I don't know what it is. You just collect fines from the players and shake hands with the referee before the match.
It doesn't actually matter.
You know, it's not like a cricket captain where you're directly responsible for picking the team and so on. But I think it's a symbolic role, and you're always expecting your captain to be like set the standards, to be one of the better players, to very rarely make mistakes. And there we go. We've covering 2 Ross County games, and there's 4 across the 2 matches where he's been responsible. Maybe 3.5, because I think the Josh Fowler's opening goal here, he didn't look too clever in it. But
no,
certainly
both of them didn't look too well. I haven't watched it back, and it's difficult to tell from the angle, because you can't see whether it's kind of like zoomed in a bit, so you can't see if there's like a left back, for instance, maybe playing them on. But it looked to me actually that for the initial flick on, Fowler was offside. Just wasn't kind of picked up.
You weren't the only one that thought he was offside as well. Just as running and goal, Gallagher standing with his hand up there. It's a really good finish into the net. I don't like this thing. I don't like picking on players, because that's not cool.
It's him and Wright. Wright's not. So Wright's maybe a little bit unlucky in that if Fowler is offside, he's kind of got the edge on him, because he can kind of use his body weight against him as kind of leverage. But Wright should still maybe be a bit stronger and try to clear that header. And then Gallagher just, again, it's kind of like similar to the red card. He just doesn't see that it's Shields again, isn't it?
No, it's Tyrese McDonald's.
Was it? Okay, it was coming on his blind side, and he's just ready. He's kind of ready to kind of leisurely kind of hook it up the park, and just doesn't know that somebody's coming to pinch it off him.
But it's not been a good start. And I don't know how you solve that, because Gallagher's an experienced player. You know, plenty of ups and downs in his career, and should have learned how to deal with the various tumults as they come. But I don't know what the situation is. I think it might be in everyone's best interest to take him out of the team for the time being.
He's only going to be out of the team for one game.
Well, there you go. You never know that they might figure some way. Maybe Josh Reed might come back, and maybe like
Yakoviti, I think would be probably first choice. Maybe Dylan Smith. That was if you want somebody that's a wee bit more mobile, because Yakoviti's kind of similar to Gallagher in that he's quite slow.
I haven't seen anything. I thought this when Shaughan and I recorded the big preview podcast, and I certainly haven't anything to suggest otherwise. I think they've got too many players. A squad of 27 there. How do you keep all those players content and happy and motivated? Well, you got 26 now, so somebody's going to come in and take Gallagher's place. But it just felt like when they were assembling that squad, you've gone through the constituent parts of the team that went out on Saturday, and it makes sense. But then if you're signing like Ross Docherty, and then you're signing like Jamie Lindsay, and then you're signing like Dean Cornelius, it's like 3 players that all are broadly similar profile players.
Speaking of something, so I think there was a lot for this game. I know they're playing Queen's Park, who are probably like, I think they're up to 6 now, but you would have to look at it and think that when it's all said and done, Queen's Park will very likely be in the bottom 3 of this table.
I'd say so.
That's probably likely. I don't want to be too harsh on them, because I've got some nice things to say about their team soon enough, but that's probably the case. So getting beat by them it's still not great, but at the same time, I think there was aspects of this game that the fans were encouraged by, that they kind of broadly agreed with the team lineup, the fact that everybody was in kind of their natural positions. They were kind of they looked the kind of more dominating side until Gallagher was sent off, and then Queen's Park took a hold of the game. But the fans were still a bit annoyed with some of the substitutions. I mean, Gary Mackay-Steven, it just sounds like so far this season that it's just been the Gary Mackay-Steven that's been the exact same ever since he came back to Hearts. When he was in the Championship with Hearts, he wasn't any good. The Premiership the next season, his goals and assists kind of return was surprisingly good, considering he'd never had any games where he actually played well. And then he was like, then he barely played for Hearts for ages, and then he went to Killie, didn't do anything there. And it just seems like his career is petering out. So he was brought on. Jordan White had... I wish this was in the highlights, but I did see that John Maxwell said that Jordan White tried to control a ball with his chest and it went 20 yards away.
What the hell?
Which is like quite impressive.
It's like something like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, but the real one was Dean Cornelius was brought on and played in the wing.
Dean Cornelius is many things. A winger he is not.
The only way I could kind of see it is that he's very energetic. So you maybe think, well, put him out in the wing, he'll run up and down the flank because you're down to 10 men. But there's a reason he doesn't play on the wing. Is that he's like a terrier in the middle of the park. When he's out in space, he's not going to do well with it.
Now, what, a football? What do I do with this?
There's nobody to kick here.
But I mean, if you think, if I was to say to you at the start of the season, Fowler, who are the three sides you reckon will prop up the division? You'd probably say Airdrie, Queen's Park, and Arbroath. Like Ross County have taken 1 point off those sides. They were, and that was they were 2-0 up against Airdrie. Airdrie pulled it back to 2 each. Arbroath turned them over, deservedly so, the other week there. And you got Queen's Park. Queen's Park might have rode their luck at points here, but as Sean Crichton said in his post-match interview, and going by the highlights, didn't really see Callum Ferry have all that much to do. You know, I think a lot of the game was played out in front of him, and he praised guys like Ewan Murray and Charlie Fox for their aggression and defending the penalty box, and the balance of play. Pretty an even game, but Queen's Park went under any massive duress here.
No, and even in the period where County were on top, they didn't really create an awful lot. And that's a bit of a worry still as well. I do think he will turn it around. I think it just takes time. It seems like even if there's not any issues behind the scenes with any players or anything, that was just pure speculation. I just kind of floated the idea out there. But it's obviously a team with kind of fragile confidence at this point in time, and they need a result to kind of turn things around. When
the new manager comes in and he's saying that after 3 weeks, there's a fragility here. I was warned about it. Then straight away, it's like, wow, things can't be good there, and that's been borne out of how the season's gone so far. The fact that they are so far off St Johnstone at the top of the table that it's where Touchwood Tuesdays, but unless something big happens on Tuesday night, it feels like who's going to catch St Johnstone at the moment? No one. St Johnstone are very clearly playing the best football in the division. Like, I think it's probably too early. Our Partick Thistle and Wraith Rovers don't have as good enough squads to go the distance compared to like St Johnstone. And then you've got the team there who are, on paper, they must be the most expensively assembled squad in that division. So. A big squad, 27 players we mentioned there, and they just look so far off it. So Docherty's got a real job in his hands, but I think they've just... how do you do that with such a large squad? It must be really difficult. I mean, I've heard Dick Campbell say that the hardest thing about being a manager, it's not the 11 players out in the pitch, it's the other boys there who don't get a game. They're the ones that you've got to keep motivated. And if you're training and you know that you're not going to even make the bench, let alone the starting 11, that must be pretty demoralising. Yeah, no, definitely. It's always an issue, that, especially when it's a team not winning games. Like everything's. This is my. So we're 20 odd minutes in the podcast. It's time to bring up Hearts. This is my worry with the Hearts team this season, is that it's such a massive squad. So it's fine because the team are winning, so nobody can complain. But as soon as that turns and you stop winning games, and everybody's knocking on the manager's door, being like, "Well, why am I not getting a game?" And Tony Docherty just like propping a chair up against the door and turning his stereo up really loud so he can't hear the bangs. It'd be great if it's one of those. He's got a window to his office and somebody's behind that. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Sorry, come back later. I think it's what was interesting about it. I made a note of this from having covered the Arbroath game, which where Docherty didn't really say anything at all about the opposition. Didn't really say much about Arbroath. He said it's the kind of game that we shouldn't be losing. But do you think like Ross County versus Arbroath? When you think about it that way, it's not the kind of fixture that County should be losing. He didn't say anything at all about Queen's Park here. Didn't praise them. Didn't say anything nice about Josh Fowler or their defence or anything like that. Just really focused on his team's feelings. Well, we'll do it for him then, shall we? So we should probably start with Josh Fowler, who has been one of the signings of the season in the SPFL. 9 goals in 10 games in all competitions. Yes, I think it's an average of a goal every 87 minutes. That's incredible. I was really excited when they signed him because Josh Fowler was a name when he signed from Beef Juniors to go for, I think it was Dubai City FC, something glamorous like that. I think the career trajectory from the West of Scotland Premier Division to the Gulf, there can't be many players that have followed that journey. And then to him, as he's played in Australia, played back in the Middle East before going to Queen's Park. There's a lot of intrigue about it because he did score a lot of goals at Beath, and you think that the sense, what would be a normal sign was you go and sign for Airdrie, or you go and sign for Stenhousemuir or someone like that. So that's really interesting. And then to see him come in, and he's quite a diminutive guy as well. You wonder, what's he going to be like against the hustle bustle in the Championship? But you can just see what he's got. You saw that in the League Cup group stages. He's just a really, really good finisher. Really clean striker of the ball here. Doesn't need much to find his balance and get the shot off early. And you saw that with both goals as well. That first goal there, because the ball kind of takes a funny bounce before he's into the box to hit it, and it's a really, really good finish beyond Laidlaw. And that second goal, that's just a snapshot from the edge of the area. How many times you see the ball break into someone and it gets whacked out the ground or miles over the crossbar? To have that composure to steer it beyond Laidlaw for a second time, it's been brilliant. And I think the only downside for this, he's only contracted until the end of the season. So there'll be teams, if you can keep up this form, there'll be other bigger Premiership teams will be looking at that. A guy that's been able to score goals for a team who the expectations are pretty modest for Queen's Park this season. It's been a great signing for them. Well, really good signing.
Talking about the expectations for Queen's Park, so I believe that coming into the season, I think a lot of people had them to finish bottom because of the kind of amount of players that could have left and the fact they were cutting back.
Yeah, initially, then I think the calibre of player, when they signed Aidan Connolly, when they brought him in from Wraith Rovers, I remember thinking, ooh, that's quite a good signing. And then we were able to keep hold of Charlie Fox and Callum Ferry. I don't think it was going to be as grievous as I anticipated, but I expected if Queen's Park got 8th place, I think that'd have been a really good season.
And I'd still say that will probably be the case. But look at their team. I was surprised at just how many kind of decent players have still got in it. You mentioned them too, Ferry and Fox. Ewan Murray's a good player at that level. Henry Fieldson is somebody I've seen. I've loads of kind of good write-ups about him. Carlo Pignatello, is that how you pronounce it? Pignatello. I mean, I'm surprised he's back in the Championship, but he's been a bit of a lower league stalwart and has had, again, good write-ups so far this season. You mentioned Connolly, Louis Longridge, good player at this level. Roddy McGregor, solid enough. And then Fowler's the X Factor. The one thing I would say is that looking at their bench,
I was just about to say that
they seem like they've got a very shallow squad because other than Seb Drost, who scored against Rangers, I've not heard of any of these guys.
And there's a couple of the boys in there. Liam McLeish has made, I think I was checking it in Soccer Base, something like about 30 odd sub appearances for Queen's Park. He was on loan to Kelty Hearts last season. I don't think he's kicked on to the level of expected. Under normal circumstances, he'd probably be on loan somewhere else. Queen's Park need him to come and cover. And I think Ricky Waugh was on loan at Stirling Albion last season. So there's guys who have probably got like a season's worth of experience beneath them. See the rest of the players, like I had a look at their stats. I think between them, the rest of the substitutes have probably got about 5 senior appearances between them. And so Sean Crichton doesn't really have anyone to turn to if things are going bad. They're fortunate at the moment. I think other than Michael Ruth, they don't really have any senior players that are out missing at the moment. So there's a degree of fortune in that. But if things do go wrong, say, God forbid, something happens to Josh Fowler, he's out for a couple of weeks, or Charlie Fox, a recurrence of his injury, so on, like Louis Longridge, something happens to him, they really are down to the bare bones. What I would say, though, is that, and I've said this very, very often about Sean Crichton, I think, like, see, as an ambassador for your football club, I think Sean Crichton's one of the best in the business. He is just... said this, it's all these intangible, just he looks good, he speaks so well. To quote Kerry McIntyre there, but he talks.
That's twice as sweet from both times for the guy sitting in that exact seat.
He speaks so well, but he does it, and just that, even the wee nod that he gave at the end to Eddie Hunter, who's the Queen's Park legend, played for the club, managed the club, passed away last week. Even just a wee acknowledgement to that just means so much to supporters, that because in this day and age, I mean, not to speak ill of Eddie Hunter, but what does Eddie Hunter mean to a lot of the guys at Queen's that are playing and managing Queen's Park at the moment? Probably not much, but the fact that Crichton understands that and he's able to give it a nod, fans buy into that, and the fans will be really, really impressed and really proud of what the players have turned in this season. I mean, that was the first win of the campaign, first win in 203 days as well. So I think Queen's Park are motoring along quite nicely, and Crichton does deserve a lot of credit. First job in management. I mean, he interim for a couple of games. He took over at Stenhousemuir after between Stephen Swift and Gary Naismith, and he's
Between the dark and the light.
Yes, aye. And he felt like he was thrown into the role, and maybe because he was a cheap option with Queen's Park cutting back, he felt like a cheap option. But he's done well. He's quite a principled manager. I like the way that he's got Queen's Park playing at the moment. And I think at the moment, yes, it's all about putting points on the board, because there's going to be a lean period for Queen's Park. That's probably going to come up, as we mentioned, if players are injured. But I think Queen's Park, on the pitch at least, are in a decent place at the moment.
Yeah, off the pitch is a very different story. We don't really have time for all that. So let's move into League One.
Just
one
more thing.
Let's not move into League One.
Just one more thing. I say this: there's a player at Ross County called Joe Coyle. He scored the winner for Newton Moor in the Command. I've completely mangled the spelling. Like a Command Cup shinty.
All right.
Aye, he's a shinty player.
There you go.
Apparently he is able to go between both disciplines, and I think he's probably at a period where he needs to make a choice. Is it going to be the shinty or is it going to be the football? Can it be, again, like Josh Fowler's career trajectory? There can't be many people that have had to choose between the football and the shinty. So hopefully Coyle can translate his prowess on the shinty field into the football pitch and score the goals that Ross County need to win a game.
There you go. Right, let's move into League One and the game we're going to concentrate on there, which took place at Palmerston on Saturday, and that was Queen of the South 0, Inverness Caledonian Thistle 2. Chanka Zimba scored 9 minutes into the game. Cali should have been 2, 3, 4, 5 goals ahead. And Queen of the South themselves, we'll look at a couple of chances they had in the second half to get back into it, but eventually Cali made sure the points, with Louis Longstaff scoring from his own half in the 94th minute. And it means that Queen of the South are down in 6th place in the League One table. Fans starting to get a bit fed up with Peter Murphy's management. Well, Inverness are still a point behind Steny at the top of the table, but do have the best record in the third tier. They are only second due to their 5-point deduction.
Just watching Cali Thistle, they are by some distance the best team in that division. Now I know that they're officially Stennismuir are top in the table, but Cali Thistle, because of that point deduction, they'd be ahead of them.
6 victories and 1 defeat for the first 7 games.
Yeah, and in fact, and 6 clean sheets as well. The only team to have scored against and beaten them, they've only Stennismuir beat them 2-1. That's the only time they've conceded, the only time they've lost a game. They are, not only are they really, really strong at the back, and guys like Danny Devine and Remy Savage, 2 big centre backs that just eat balls up and can play a bit as well. And watching these highlights, what I was so impressed about, it's not an exaggeration to say, it was like watching PlayStation football. It was just the slickness that Cali Thistle are playing with. Obviously, a very, very well coached team, a team that are obviously, you're full of confidence that you can make stuff like that look easy. But it looks like a lot of fun to play for Inverness Caledonian Thistle, looks like a lot of fun to manage Inverness Caledonian Thistle, and a lot of fun to support Inverness Caledonian Thistle. And I think that all those qualities, the strength at the back, the combinations in the midfield, maybe could do with another forward options, because they were very, very profligate in this game. As you mentioned there, they could have scored loads of goals, but I think it's just a matter of time before they take to the top of the table and stay there, because I can't really see any other team in that division being able to get the better of them. They
do have some forward options. There's more. Zimba tucked away his chance. He wasn't really the one that had the other chance. It was kind of the wide players that kind of fell to the ones that were messing up the two on
Alfie
ones.
Stewart went through and goalie takes a really bad touch, and Ross Stewart comes out and saves.
There's another one as well, I think, where they went 2-on-1 and managed to make an arse of it as well. But they've also, because they made a swap in this change, Alfie Babbage came out of the team. They've also got Billy Mackay as well, but they went with Zimba because they wanted to go more direct in this one, and this was something that Queen of the South fans were kind of sitting on the opposite side, being almost jealous of what they were watching, because they've got the kind of methodical pass it out from the back, always taking the goal kick shot, and then you've got a Cali team coming in. They're not necessarily going long. What they're doing is zipping it around.
Vertical.
Vertical, getting it to the forward players quickly and letting them work from there. But it shows that they've got adaptability as well, because they're usually, Cali are seen as being a bit more of a, not quite like Queen of the South, but a bit more just kind of pass and move, and that's the kind of way to play, build it up from the back. But in this one, they decided that no, the best way to do it was to go right at Queens, and it certainly worked, because they should have hammered them.
Aye, you could talk about Zimba's goal to begin with, because it's actually a really, really nice finish. I wasn't sure when the ball gets headed out to Alfie Stewart, I'm not sure if it's a shot or a pass that he's trying here, but nevertheless, if it's a shot, it's miles off target. If it's a pass, it's genius. It's Zidane-esque. But then the finish from Zimba's brilliant, just to flick the heel in it and completely bamboozle Stewart and the rest of the defence to put it over the line. But you're right, just in terms of the chances they created, and I think that's something that's really impressive then about Caley Thistle, the versatility they've got. Because if you talk about like Queens, for instance, Queen, having seen Queens earlier in the season, they can be a good side. You know, they've got the players that can move the ball quickly, and they've got in Guthrie up front. They have got somebody who's a bit of a battering ram, but he can be quite inconsistent, and we saw that there. There was one chance where he hit the crossbar, which is, I think, to actually get it on target. That would have been
incredible.
It was an incredible goal. But the second one where he hits the bar with it, where he cuts across the defender and thumps it, and he hits the bar, and thinking, oh, you really need to score that because you're unmarked.
Because he kind of ducks his head down at the last minute to get as much kind of power in it as possible.
But it's a bit too much bloody power on it.
He did. He obviously just ducked it down that little bit too much, and you want to be more like they always teach you to get your head over the ball and head it down. Instead, he kind of heads it slightly up.
Yeah.
So and it's a chance that he should score, but it would have been, if they managed to get something out of this game, it would have been like a robbery, because it was like the highlights was all Inverness, and I laughed when it was like the first highlight of Queen of the South, like basically having the ball and crossing halfway, and all it was a cross into the box that was then eventually just calmly headed back to the goalkeeper.
I actually watched, it was Queen of the South highlights package I watched, because I often wonder. Theirs was about 3 minutes longer than Callie's, and I just wondered how representative are they? And then you actually see it's like so many chances they have, and it really is testimony to how good they are. And I think that it's unusual that the man of the match, your team loses 2-0, but the best player in the park's the Queen of the South goalkeeper, Ross Stewart. Yeah,
and that was, so seeing so many Queens fans just sick of Peter Murphy's play. They think he's out his depth. I mean, there was a lot of ill feeling towards him last year before they kind of rallied towards the kind of back end of the season and started winning some home games. And I think that's obviously kind of, because they've been mistrusting of him for most of his tenure, the fact that they've not started this season particularly well. They've won 3 games, but every single one of them has come against a team in the bottom 3. Peterhead, Kelly Hearts and Cove Rangers. They've been thumped off of Hamilton. They didn't play well the week before. They've been beaten easily at home by Inverness. It should have been more than that.
Dennis Muir maybe should have beaten them. As a draw was a fair result, but Stenny did create some really good chances against them, and Stewart was very good in that match as well.
And there was a few things that stood out to me about Grinning Pete's post-match press conference. He said that they were excellent in the second half. I didn't see a single Queens fan saying anything approaching that. Said they were better, but nobody came close to saying excellent. Everybody says like, we were deservedly beaten there. And he said that there were a number of outstanding performances. So he said they were excellent for a half, and there was a number of outstanding performances. He basically talked about 2 players, one of whom was Matty Douglas, who'd played through illness, which fair enough. But the other one was Ross Stewart, who's goalkeeper. So if you're going on about an excellent performance, but your best player by a mile is your goalkeeper, that should tell you a lot.
Aye, I've got a degree of sympathy for him. I mean, he didn't have much of a bench to call upon.
They had a lot of players out injured.
Players missing, like the guys, but then I suppose the guys, 2 of the guys who are out injured, they're like long-term injuries. Like Brennan Dickinson has been out, I think, all of the season, missed the tail end of last year as well. Jordan Allen has been out. He might actually start ahead of Curtis Guthrie. Benji Louison, who was only fit enough to make the bench, might be someone that be considered as part of the midfield. But he didn't necessarily have the options to change it. But it wasn't like Ross Stewart was missing. It wasn't like Matty Douglas was out the team, you know. But I suppose then if you compare that to Caley Thistle, like Caley Thistle able to like bring Paul Allen onto the pitch like with 15 minutes to go. There's like Alfie Bavidge coming on like with 10 minutes to go. You know, the Queens didn't have that luxury. It doesn't take away from the fact that fans might be a bit fed up with Murphy's excuses, and my goodness, when it was an 11-minute post-match interview, there were a lot of excuses in there, like finances was one. I think they were talking about looking to sign Oscar McIntyre, who they had on loan previously, said a deal couldn't be done for him. They were, I can't remember, they were talking about maybe like unnamed players able to bring the Challenge Cup. Talking about that players being an international. Do you think Callum Penman was away with Scotland, so they couldn't select him? So it feels like just excuses. And I suppose I do again sympathy for Peter Murphy, because the post-match interviews are perhaps some fans' only way into understanding what's going on, and it's a long post-match interview. I know it's something that Shaughan and I have joked about before, just the length of these post-match interviews, but he does get asked a lot, so it's quite, if you're talking for 11 minutes, it can be quite easy to to give quite a lot of yourself away.
Yes.
Maybe,
talk yourself into trouble.
Because it
was one of the way he talked about Curtis Guthrie. He said he's going to be out for a few weeks now because he probably shouldn't have played because he's carrying an injury. Now he's going to be out for a few weeks because basically we were down to the bare bones. And I was like, should you really be admitting that for a game in September? Like, is it really worth it to play someday? And so they're going to play them and they're going to be injured for a while. So you're going to miss them for a few games so you can play them in one. And I was like, was he playing it because it was the Cali game? And he thought, if we play him and we win here, it'll be a big boost for the rest of the season. Or was he also maybe thinking, I need a victory to keep myself in a job here? So
I don't mean I was like,
it certainly opened yourself up to criticism. But it was like I was sitting there watching. I was like, I don't know if you should have said that.
Yeah, there's some things you want to keep yourself, but I suppose then that's part of the. He's a very honest guy. You know, something you might not necessarily agree with what he's saying. I mean, when he spoke after Stennismuir got a 0-0 draw with him, and I thought a draw was a fair result, as I've said there, but didn't really praise Stennismuir once at all, and complained about the pitch, said that Stenny were quite a direct side, which I didn't necessarily think was the case. So I might not necessarily agree with him, but I think that he is like honest with his opinion and how he reads the game. So some people might not necessarily like hearing that, especially if you're a full-time club in a part-time division and you're already, like you say, you've dropped down to 6 and it's a tight division, let's be honest, it's a tight, so losing that match isn't the end of the world. They're still very much within touching distance from like Stenny and from Cali Thistle,
which goes back to me asking why you would play Guthrie if he's now going to be out for a few weeks if it's a tight league.
Yeah, there you go then.
I think he did roll the dice and like thinking if we can get a big result here, this will galvanise everybody. But he's out. I suppose as well he might just be like, we'll have to rest him anyway, so if it's going, you can maybe just play this game and he's going to be out for the same length of time. You would think that is, but I was like, that kind of was like, what? I don't know if you should have said that, pal.
But I suppose you compare it to Scott Kelleher's post-match interview, and although he sways a lot, I said that previously, it looks like he's standing on the deck.
It's like Tony getting interviewed.
I was going to say, or the captain of Titanic explaining why he didn't see that iceberg just as the ship's taking in so much water. But just every time I listen to Scott Kelleher, and I suppose it's quite easy to do when your team are as good as they are and they're winning a lot of time, he just like so much positivity. You know, we made fun of him for like playing The Climb by Miley Cyrus to his players. Yes. You know, that is quite funny, to be fair. That's me. You deserve scorn for that. If you're saying, I'm glad the players understood the message of like, I'm going to climb this mountain. You know, it's wow. I can really get the double and triple meanings in there. But you know, just how excited he is about working with these players and how excited he is by what they're able to produce in the pitch. And yeah, Cali Thistle have got advantages compared to a lot of other teams in the division. I think they're quite well backed. Like now Alan Savage is in there. I know they had a difficult season last year in their administration, but the ship is very much steady. They just exited administration, I think it was last week in fact, as well. And on top of that, they lost twice at Palmerston last season. So of course you'd be delighted. It feels like a monkey off their back in that regard. Like, I mean, it's a long way to go as well. Yeah. So that makes it even sweeter. And he said the players executed the game plan, and he's so happy. And on top of that as well, another thing he said I found really interesting. He was really pleased with the maturity of his players. I think there was 5 yellow cards in the first half, all for
defensive players,
but all for fouls, all niggly fouls. And this is something that Peter Murphy said in his interview where he compared them to when he was Annan manager. Falkirk were in the division, and Falkirk were really good at just, you've taken the ball past me, back you come, and take the booking for it. Just being disruptive and being smart and being streetwise. And it's a bit of a grubby way to play, and no one likes seeing like when the opponent yanks you back and that you get a booking. But it's just a part of the game. It's being streetwise, and that's what Cali Thistle were. And the fact that Scott Kelleher was talking about at half time, he was maybe crossed his mind to maybe sub off some of his players who were on bookings, but he was like, nah, I trust them.
Yeah,
like,
he said he had a word with them. He had a word with a couple of them, and basically said to them, like, I'm putting my trust in you. Yeah. Don't do anything stupid.
And there you go. And it should have been like 2-0. I think very much flatters. Yes, I mean, it says a lot for Ross Stewart, but it really flatters Queen of the South in some regards as well.
Before we move on, we should talk about the goal. The goal, yeah.
Oh, jeez, oh man, it's funny because if I told you someone had scored from the halfway line, I'd be like, my God, I can't wait to see it. But then what if I said it was like a cavalcade of pratfalls in the build up to it? because basically
it starts off on the edge of the penalty area where Charters, I think, smashes a shot off his own player. Yeah,
it's basically so it's the 94th minute. Ross Stewart's gone up just to try into a corner, just to try and rescue a point. A bit of a chaos factor with the goalkeeper, and just as the ball breaks the edge of the area, Charters whacks it off Hewitt. The ball goes back to the centre circle, and then as Queens try to play their way back forward, they completely muck it up.
It's Hannah makes a tremendous challenge. I think it's on Paul Allen. He makes a tremendous challenge on Paul Allen, who looks set to streak away and just run it up and easily put it in the back of the net. But then so he not only makes the tackle, he wins the ball back at the same time, gets up and then carries it. And then instead of doing what you should do in that situation,
punt it
lump
forward,
it back into the box, he tries to play this pass at the middle of the park and immediately give it away again.
It's quite funny. Ross Stewart's there as well, so Ross Stewart did bring a chaos factor just to the wrong team.
Yeah, he kind of gets in the way.
He gets in the way, and then, fair play to Longstaff because there's no backlift in that. He basically, the ball comes to him, he looks up and hits it. And what I loved so much about it was just the as it crosses the line. It's not something that happens very often, but that feeling when the ball trickles over the line, particularly when it's such an important. That put the tin lid in it. That was guaranteed. Cali Thistle with 3 points, something like that. What a feeling! What a feeling!
Brilliant. Right. Let's move into League 2 for our game to focus on there, and that was the Spartans. Still top of the table, but this was a bit of a shocker, losing 3-1 at home to Stirling Albion. They were 3-0 down a minute after half-time. Ryan Shanley got the opener, Ross Cunningham scored for the penalty spot, and then Chris Eadie added the third just after the break. Ayrton Solker got one back for the Spartans, but with East Kilbride drawing, this was an opportunity missed for the home team to put some distance between themselves and Mick Kennedy's boys. And the only thing to really talk about here is, oh dear Lord, the defending.
Yes, the reason that we selected this game is we're at the stage of the season now where we have spoken a lot about teams, or say you want to focus on one team, but they're playing against a team that you spoke about last week. For instance, Clyde would have been a good one to talk about, but they played Edinburgh the weekend, and Shaughan and I had already spoken about them. So when we saw the scoreline, Spartans losing 3-1 at home to Stirling Albion, immediately you're like, wow, that's something we should talk about. 90 seconds of highlights from the SPFL's lower league roundup on the BBC iPlayer, which is great that we've got the chance to do it, but there's no larger highlights from either club, no post-match interviews from either club, but I know that Stirling Albion,
and no Spartans fans online to talk about the team. No Spartans
fans online, just a couple of Stirling Albion fans who use loads of emojis after every line when they're writing about something in Pie and Bovril. I did say though, so the Stirling Albion are in the process of hiring people for the media team, so hopefully we get to see more in the future. It doesn't necessarily help us at the moment, so we've got 90 seconds of highlights to discuss this match.
But enough to talk about just with how bad the goals were. And Kevin Waugh, was that
Kevin
Waugh? Kevin Waugh, the Spartans captain, at fault for every single goal in a way. The first one, less his fault. He's the one that kind of goes to aggressively challenge the ball in the air. He doesn't get it, and it's a really nice, and he wins it. I think it's Shanley that wins it above him.
Yeah, it's actually a really good 1-2 between Shanley and Eadie. However, the point, sorry to jump in there, but when Shanley's playing that ball over to Eadie, Waugh seemed to get completely in a fankle and caught underneath it. And Eadie is quite a diminutive striker, pacey and energetic going by this, and he looked like he had a pretty good game. But I think Waugh would expect him to do better.
Waugh's beating him there, and then Eadie gets there ahead of Sonkler for the flick on. But it's a really nice finish for Shanley. I keep calling him Shanley. I love the fact that he just kind of flicks it with outside his right boot.
Now, this is something I did see. Did you watch Matthew's Football Adventures video that went on? So this is a young guy who's a vlogger for Stirling Albion matches.
All right.
So he's behind the goals for this. Now, he doesn't capture all of the action. He doesn't really get the build up to. He doesn't see the flick on and Eadie beating Waugh, but he does have Shanley's finish. And you're absolutely right, it's a really nice finish because Jordan Tapping's coming along, and I think he almost in a split second is able to use Jordan Tapping as a marker to play outside him and wrong foot Paddy Martin.
Yeah,
really, really good goal. Shanley's a good player. The fact that he got moved to Falkirk when they were in League One, I know he was ultimately a squad player and ultimately didn't work out for him, but the fact that John McGlynn saw him as a viable option to help them win the championship, that says a lot from the guy. The guy's talented, and I don't really think that he's impressed all too much since moving to Stirling Albion.
No.
However, in recent weeks, we're beginning to see what he can offer. You know, he's a bit stocky. You know, he sometimes isn't quite as hardworking as he should be, but what you lack in that dynamism, you do make up for in sort of moments of quality. And in this goal, you saw the best of him. Great header right into Edie. Yes, Edie gets a bit of luck there, but then when the ball comes back to him, no mistakes, really good finish to open the scoring.
And the second goal, Waugh has an absolute shocker. Trying to play it out for the back, he just gives it right to Shanley, and then he advances and is brought down by Paddy Martin, and then the penalty is tucked away easily by Ross Cunningham. And then the third is similar to the first, but even worse. Sonker goes up for the header, doesn't win it, but this time Waugh is in more kind of control of the situation. He just has to like try and hook it away, do anything, knee it back to the goalkeeper. He just hesitates far too much on the ball and allows Edie to get in again, and it's a composed finish to make it 3-0, and that's it, game over.
Yeah, we'll talk about both players. We'll start with Kevin Waugh, and unfortunately, again, I sound like I'm picking on the same players when we talk about teams like Declan Gallagher or Kevin Waugh, but the times I've seen Kevin Waugh, I've not particularly been impressed by him. The first time it really captured my attention was last season when I went to see Edinburgh City 2, Spartans 0. He was like red card, Connor Young got the wrong side of him, yanked him down, and I think he gave away a penalty in that match, red card. And I think that he's the sort of player that struggles against fast players. Right. I think he's quite good at defending the penalty box. Him and Sonker are good at that. You're big, strong boys. But if you can get them into areas when they're not comfortable, then you can make things difficult for them. As I'm saying that, he's good at defending the penalty box. That third goal is right in the middle of the penalty box. But I wonder. He'd already had a tough day to that point, so maybe his head just wasn't quite. It's one of these moments where just like things are weighing on your mind because you've had a terrible first half, and that wouldn't be that in that moment. Just back out for the start of the second period. He's not quite fully into the flow of the game yet, and he's just waiting far too long to deal with that situation. But the pass out from the back for the second goal is inexplicable. I know that Paddy Martin's a wee bit slow off. I suppose you can't. I'm not going to blame the goalkeeper in this one. You see that sort of thing happen. He's the one that fouls Shanley, but when you've got the entire pitch in front of you to look at and make your pass, I think it's James Cragen that he's looking for. It must just be you just lose your concentration for a split second.
Tunnel vision,
and you don't see this guy in a bright purple jersey that's just in front of you to find your teammate. And I wonder with the Spartans having moved on Blair Henderson, I think with Henderson, I often thought that Henderson's obviously a good player, scored loads of goals, but I was never quite impressed by him, and I thought that the Spartans might need to evolve beyond him, and they have done that. I think when the East Kilbride game at the opening day of the season, when Dougie Samuel effectively played with no strikers, played like basically just contained East Kilbride, hit them in the counter-attack, and he had the pace with Bradley White, Jamie Dishington, Cammy Russell to go and hit them. That paid dividends, and you were thinking maybe that's a tactic he's using just specifically against East Kilbride, but then Henderson just couldn't get back into the team since then. And I wonder if like the Spartans had perhaps outgrown Blair Henderson, and I wonder if the same thing might be happening with Kevin Waugh, who's been a really good player for them. He's the captain of the club, but every time I've seen him, I just haven't been particularly impressed by him. And I think this match,
eventually they'd get subbed off as well.
Yeah, which that's when you're
not great when you're a captain and centre half
and a centre back. You tend not to see that happening. But I just wonder if it's something that we might see at some point. And that's not criticised like Waugh as a player, because he's had a very good career for the Spartans, been a very important player for them. But just every time I've seen him, maybe it's just me. In fact, I shouldn't watch his highlights or go and watch him. But then I suppose the counter of that is just like how good Chris Eadie looked.
Yes,
young boy,
his first start. On loan for Rangers.
Yeah, young boy coming on loan from Rangers. Oh, that was our thing as well. You can really see on Matthew's football adventures. He's got a really good view of the third goal, and it's really bad from Waugh's perspective, but just tenacious from Eadie, and you can see that he's not the tallest guy in the world. I mean, he's played in a couple of Challenge Cup ties, in fact, even for the 23-24 season, so he has sporadically, let's be honest, but he has experience against bigger boys. But in this game as well, just like a fearlessness, like to go up against Waugh, who's an experienced defender, and sort of rip the drawers off him for the first goal and lay it on a plate for Shanley, really impressive stuff. And this one, in most circumstances, if there's a big guy standing over the ball, you might just think, well, he's going to win it, no point. Just go and noise him up and see what happens. And that's what happens. And on top of that as well, if you were Dougie Samuel, I imagine in this match, your half time's approaching, you're one down, get the boys in, give them a rocket, send them back out. You're 2 down before the interval with that penalty, and think, right, we're 2 down, don't fucking do anything stupid, and then that happens. So within 46 minutes, that's the game over.
I think this was actually a hallmark of Stirling Albion's play, because that was something that the fans were really praising, and that maybe he changed up the formation, changed up the team, brought Edie into the start alongside Shanley, went with a 4-4-2, which they haven't been playing off of late, and there was a lot of praise for how kind of strong they were in their pressing and their tenacity all around the team, and that obviously starts from the front.
Yeah,
and so you've got somebody like Edie who's got that tenacity, and we know that Shanley is a player like that as well. He's a mobile forward. Then I think that was just from very early on, they just got in Spartans' faces, and they just kind of obviously a lot of mistakes that made the result in the end, but never really let them settle. Which, considering they're top of the table and they were playing them away from home, that's very impressive.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the Spartans have had a really good season. Had prior to this, I think they'd won 5 of their 6 matches. They'd only beaten Dunbarton. Were really good against East Kilbride as well in that opening day of the season that we've already spoken about. I think you would just put this down to just a catastrophic day at the office. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it's not often the Spartans are going to get beaten at home, particularly by a team. I mean, Stirling Albion, they perhaps showed a degree of aggression, and fair play to them, because they'd lost 3-0 up at Elgin, and by all accounts were really, really poor in that match. So to go to the league leaders and really do a number of them, I think that's good. That augurs well for Maybury going forward. The last time that we'd spoken about Stirling Albion on this podcast, it was criticising a supporter who had photoshopped the Stirling Albion management team hanging from a tree, their faces on it. So it's actually good to talk
a Ku Klux Klan lynching.
Which is completely just awful, man. The fact that you would find that funny and then take the time to design it and then put it online. So it's actually good to be able to talk about them in a positive way. And it's just a shame that we couldn't get a better handle of the game because we were only treated to 90 seconds.
Yeah, the only thing else I have is that another young star on loan from an Old Firm team got a good write-up. Mackenzie Kerr in the centre of the park was noted for his composure on the ball and also kind of helping the press alongside Robbie McNabb, who, as we've kind of said before, is one of the most fittest players in Scottish football.
He's actually a Stirling Albion player.
Is he actually? Is he not on loan?
Not on loan from Rangers. A Stirling Albion player.
It was at Celtic. It was before. So okay, they must have signed him then.
That's right. I think. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm just checking his profile on Soccer Base here. Yeah, Robbie McNabb, I think just a very, very handsome guy in the middle of the park, and as you say, very, very fit, very infectious. And if you want to feel bad about yourself, and I often do, go and take a look at the guy's Instagram page, because he is built like he's been carved out of marble.
This is a team, just look at the Stirling team, it does seem like a team in general that can play with that kind of intensity most weeks. Like, talked about the front players, talked about McNabb, but also like Callum Crane is a very kind of hard runner. Yeah. Somebody that doesn't mind getting in somebody's face and putting in hard tackles.
I like that as well. Again, you see this on Matthew's Football Adventures video. I think when when Cunningham scores the penalty, they go and celebrate in front of the fans that are behind the goal in the sort of grassy embankment, and he's saying, "Mobinos!" like that to the fans. So he's good. It's just the conundrum, and I'll need to go and see Stirling Albion at some point this season, just how Maybury gets Adam Brown and Ross Cunningham into the same team. Now, it worked here. I just think the players that want to occupy the same sort of space, they'll kind of float around the edges of matches, and then when the team's on the attack, they really spring to life. You can maybe get away with one player in that. Right. And certainly last season, Adam Brown, I think that when he moved from Stennismere, I think he was, in terms of his goals plus assists, maybe the strongest contributor in the division last season. Might need to double check those stats. But then Cunningham at Kelty Hearts scored a lot of goals, but again, wouldn't necessarily involve himself with the hustle and bustle until the team were in the attack, and then he could score goals like I think he finished the top scorer with some like 11 or 12 goals for the season. So I need to know how they get into the team together. So I want to go and see them at some point. But I think it's a much needed win for Maybury. I think it's important for him to have won that match, particularly bouncing back from last week. I think for Dougie Samuel, maybe down the line there's decisions. I wouldn't read too much into it from Dougie Samuel's perspective, but maybe decisions to be made further down the line.
Right, I think that'll do us.
There's one more thing to say. Kane Hester's goal in Elgin City's 1-1 draw with Stranraer.
Of course, I did see that. The flick.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And this is basically a corner. It's 1-1 draw. Elgin's 1-1 draw with Stranraer down at Stair Park. It's a corner into the box, and he jumps up and does a pirouette and flicks his heel up, and it sends the ball looping over the goalkeeper and into the net. Beautiful goal. And it comes off the back of his free kick against Stirling Albion last week, which was, I presume you've seen that.
I've not seen that.
Oh my goodness. So. There's an angle, the angle from the highlights, you see the bend the ball takes. It's like straight, and just at the last minute it curves. Like, I think it goes into the sort of the angle of net, from not the angle of post and bar, but inside the net, in between the angle where
the stanchion used to be.
Yes, where the stanchion would have been. Yeah, it's a beautiful goal, and I think what I wanted to talk about this is Hester has scored 2 incredible goals back to back for each other. And I hope this is the sign that he has got his mojo back. I think since moving to Elgin, I think he's perhaps underwhelmed a wee bit. People are like, where's the old Kane Hester? Why can't we have him back? And now he's been able to do that consecutive weeks. Curiously enough, I was looking at the last time that he'd actually scored back-to-back goals. It was actually a year ago to the weekend that he scored back-to-back goals. He scored 3 games in a row as a Montrose player. I thought it was further ago.
I'm actually surprised by that, because he underwhelmed a bit in Montrose.
I think so. Remember when I remember when they had Kane Hester and Rory McAllister up front. I said it was like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat. But it was more like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Righteous Kill than that. Hopefully somebody watching this going,
have you actually seen that? Because I've not.
Oh no, why?
You like terrible movies?
Aye, but I mean, like, go watch Heat. Heat's amazing. Heat's absolutely amazing. That's a brilliant movie.
Like a ripping off Peep Show by this point.
That's probably somebody probably listen to these cunts talking about football. They could be watching Heat instead. I'm going to imagine I am watching Heat. But yeah, hopefully Hester can get his mojo back, and hopefully he can take Alan Hale Brackett's Left's team up to challenging for the playoffs again.
It's certainly a goal that you need to have a lot of confidence at the time to even attempt. So,
but there's 2 goals. I mean, he is like a bit. That's like an Olivier Giroud kind of goal. Like, we're seeing that with that free kick. I mean, Giroud didn't necessarily take free kicks, but Giroud could absolutely thump the ball as well. So yeah, let's hopefully it's the start of a bit of a renaissance for Hester.
And I hadn't seen the free kick, but it makes sense now, because I saw a tweet from the SPFL, and it said Kane Hester is having his own goals of the season competition, and then it only showed 1 in the clip, and I was like, I'm confused.
Yeah, well, not anymore. So if you, Fowler, take away one thing from this podcast we recorded tonight, Kane Hester's having a bit of a purple patch at the moment.
There we go. Right, that'll do us. Telfer, thank you very much.
No, thank you, Fowler. Absolute pleasure.
If you would like to hear even more, in fact, if you would like to hear all about the league leaders in League One, which is Stenhousemuir, myself and Telfer are just about to record a Patreon podcast about that. So if you want to listen, you have to subscribe, patreon.com/terrace podcast.
There's probably somebody saying, why the fuck do I want to pay to hear that when I hear it every other fucking week?
Because it'll last about 30 consecutive minutes. It'll be concentrated.
Yes,
it won't be little bits and pieces that you have to pick up per podcast.
Rather than my entire prism of knowledge coming through the Stenhousemuir. When someone says, this guy scored a goal. Yes, I remember when Stenhousemuir scored a goal that one time as well. No, so it's worth subscribing to. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about with the Warriors.
Yes, so we're just going to record that. So yeah, one more time, like I said, patreon.com/terrace podcast. But that'll do us. Telfer, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig Fowler.
And thank you to everybody for listening. We'll be back again soon. Goodbye.